The disorders from digestion and absorption. NCRT chapter 16. The inflammation of the intestinal tract is the most common element due to the bacterial or viral infections. Inflammation of the intestinal tract is the most common element due to the bacterial or viral infections. The infections are also caused by the parasites of the intestine, as we know, like tapeworm, it causes teniasis, roundworm, ascariasis, threadworm, hookworm, pinworm, the many helminth parasites. And we know about Entamoeba histolytica, which cause amoebic dysentery. So there are all different kinds of disorders caused by caused in the intestine. Then some disorders we are going here that the general digestive disorders. Among them, the first one is jaundice. Jaundice. So what is getting affected here? In the jaundice, liver is going to be affected here. Jaundice, liver is going to be affected. Liver is affected in the jaundice. So that along with that, skin and the eyes are going to turn yellow. Skin and eyes turn yellow. And due to the deposit of bile pigments. So the jaundice to be remembered as the liver is affected, then skin and eyes turn yellow due to the deposit of bile pigments. Okay, moving on, number 2, vomiting. In case of vomiting, what is vomiting? Vomiting is the ejection of the stomach contents through the mouth. Ejection of stomach contents through mouth. We can say ejection of stomach contents through mouth. Okay. So then this reflex action is controlled by the vomit centers present in the medulla. Reflex action because of vomit center present in the medulla. A feeling of nausea also precedes vomiting. At the time, a feeling of nausea precedes the vomiting. So vomiting is one of the disorder in digestive system. Now, moving on to the third one in the series, diarrhea. This is diarrhea. The abnormal frequency of the bowel movement. Abnormal frequency of bowel movement. You have to understand. And increased liquidity of the fecal discharge is known as diarrhea. Diarrhea can be defined as abnormal frequency of the bowel movement and increased liquidity of the fecal discharge is known as diarrhea. It reduces the absorption of food. The symptom is like it reduces the absorption of food. Next, constipation. Constipation. So in constipation, the feces are retained within the colon as the bowel movement occur irregularly. The symptom to be remembered here, the bowel movement occur irregularly. So constipation, the feces are retained within the colon. Within the colon, the feces are going to be retained and the bowel movements occur irregularly. Bowel movement, the word you have to remember here, the bowel movement in both cases we have. In diarrhea and in constipation also. What is the difference between the diarrhea and constipation? That we know in generally diarrhea means loose motion, constipation means the fecal matter is not at all released for a longer period of time, but we have to follow the text statements here to understand where it comes in the math the following. So what we said in diarrhea, bowel movement is and increased liquidity of the fecal discharge, the abnormal frequency of the bowel movement. Here in diarrhea, should remember it as abnormal frequency. Bowel movement, abnormal frequency. So the same bowel movement in case of constipation, we have to remember bowel movements occur irregularly. You remember it logically, okay, but that you have to remember it as bowel movement, abnormal frequency, diarrhea. Bowel movement occur irregularly, constipation, likewise. Okay. Next, the last one in the series, that is indigestion. Indigestion. It's there in the name, indigestion. In this condition, the food is not properly digested. That improper digestion of the food material, which leading to a feeling of fullness will come here. A feeling of fullness. In case of indigestion, the feeling of fullness we expect. The causes of indigestion. What are the causes of indigestion? It may be inadequate enzyme secretion. Enzyme secretion may not be proper, or we can say the anxiety may be the symptom here. Anxiety, anxiety may be the symptom. Maybe food poisoning. So question will come in that particular manner. Food poisoning, anxiety, inadequate enzyme secretion results into, in that manner we get the question here. So that's why should be conscious about these particular whatever the symptoms are given here, that on that particular symptoms we have to be conscious here. Next, overeating is one of them. Overeating is there, and eating the spicy food is also going to be the symptom here. The spicy food. So these are all the disorders from the digestive system. Let me take a look back again in this particular area and the digestive system disorders. So we said about the jaundice. The jaundice, the liver is affected here. The skin and eyes turn yellow due to the deposit of bile pigment. And after that, went through the vomiting, which is the ejection of the stomach contents through the mouth. This reflex action is controlled by the vomit center present in the medulla oblongata. That to be remembered over. Then a feeling of nausea precedes vomiting. A feeling of nausea precedes vomiting. Next, diarrhea. Abnormal frequency of the bowel movement. That is a keyword to be remembered in case of diarrhea. Abnormal frequency of the bowel movement is a very important word to be remembered over here in case of diarrhea. We know diarrhea means loose motions. So increase the liquidity of the fecal discharge. So it reduces the absorption of the food, diarrhea. It reduces the absorption of food. There is also a new thing to be remembered here. The constipation next. In constipation, what we say, the major effect is going to be on the colon, elementary canal portion. Colon is going to be, because in the constipation, the feces are retained within the colon. And here, the bowel movement occur irregularly. Constipation, bowel movement occur irregularly. And next, indigestion. In this condition, the food is not properly digested, leading to the feeling of fullness. The causes of indigestion are inadequate enzyme secretion, anxiety, food poisoning, and it may be overeating, or the eating spicy food are going to be the reasons for the indigestion. Okay. In the same way, the next NCRT chapter 17 we are going here. Chapter 17. So I request all of you to make a table with this particular major symptoms and disorders. Okay, so disorders from respiratory system. Disorders from respiratory system. Then let me start here. The number one, respiratory system. Asthma. The first one is going to be asthma. In case of respiratory system, asthma. What is asthma? Is a difficulty in breathing causing wheezing due to inflammation of bronchi and bronchioles. Do remember, this is trachea. In case of trachea, we know the trachea is going to be divided in the form of bronchi, and further it is going to be divided into bronchioles. Okay. So what happens in the case of asthma? The bronchi and bronchioles become much narrower. You see the difference between these two. That in this case we say asthma. They become narrow. And do remember, there is no effect to the lungs. Asthma is not at all having any effect to the lungs. Only thing you have to remember here, the asthma is a disorder for bronchi and bronchioles, where they become narrower Bronchi and bronchioles become narrower. See, this is normal condition. So here, when they become narrower, that there is a problem. Difficulty in breathing will come over. Okay, so that is very, very important. Asthma is not the disorder for lungs. Asthma affects bronchi and bronchiole. What is the major symptom? That becomes narrower. That's all. When it becomes narrower, people suffer a little bit in breathing. Okay. Next, the second one, emphysema. In the disorders of the respiratory system, it's an emphysema. Let's see the properties of emphysema. It's a chronic disorder. What is chronic? In disorders, we can see the two types. That means immediate, what you can say for a short period of time we face the problem. Then when we say chronic, chronic you have to understand prolonged disorder. That was for a longer period of time the effect can be seen over, and in one day it won't come. Okay. So acute, the word we use, entamoeba cause acute disorder. That means it causes amoebic dysentery. On the day we get effect because of the parasite. But this is going to be chronic disorder. When we say chronic, that will be prolonged and that effect is going to be longer period of time and slowly the damage is going to happen. So that you have to remember. Okay. So emphysema is a chronic disorder where the problem is in which alveolar valves are damaged. Here it is lung problem. Do remember, asthma is not a lung problem. Asthma is there in bronchi and bronchioles. Now it is a lung problem. In the lungs, we know the alveoli are present. Okay. So these particular alveoli present in the lungs, the walls are getting damaged due to which the respiratory surface is decreased. When you take a cluster of alveoli like this, these walls are getting damaged. Okay, so simply we say the elasticity of the walls is going to be affected over. So just I'll give the mechanism how it happens because a very important question. Generally, when we take the air into the lungs, so air enters into the alveoli. That is through inspiration. Okay, so due to the during expiration process, the lungs elasticity makes over. They makes the lung elasticity. That means alveolar elasticity brings out the air at the during expiration process. During the expiration process, air will come out. So what happened in the patient who is suffering with the emphysema? What happens here? That they become rigid. Alveoli become rigid. Because of that, the inhaled air which enters into the lungs, the properly won't come out. That air which is there in the lungs is properly is not coming out. So that will be trapped inside because the elasticity of the lungs the person lost. So that's why what happens, he may not get much oxygen, we may not supply much oxygen to the lungs. So that is the basic mechanism we can say here. The normal human being, inhalation and exhalation occurs properly because alveoli are going to be squeezed over during expiration to bring out the older air and they become empty for new air for inspiration. But in this particular case, air will be trapped here because the alveoli can't respond that elasticity is going to be lost over. So that which is remembered, and the very important thing, the this particular will come by the one of the major cause of this emphysema is the cigarette smoking. The disorder emphysema is by cigarette smoking. On the way, we got so many times this particular question we got in examination. So the major reason for this emphysema is cigarette smoking. Okay, next. The other occupational respiratory disorders. We need to follow through this occupational respiratory disorders. The certain disorders because of the place where we are living. If we get that, you can say occupational respiratory disorder. The disorders which the place based on the place where we are living, we can say occupational disorder. That means in the industry, especially those involving grinding or stone breaking. In the industries like grinding and stone breaking, we are taking some examples here. that granite industry, we can say here, grinding and stone breaking industry, what we can see there, that large number of sand particles are going to be raised as a smaller aerosol-like particles. So breathing and working there makes what? Makes what? Silicosis. There the problem will come, that is silicosis. Okay. Next, I'll give one more example in the cotton industry. Person working in the cotton industry. The small particulate matters raised in the cotton industry, breathing there is going to cause a disorder called bicyanosis. Coal industry. People working in the coal industry. A paper that little I am extending NCRT here. That is because this is a more important one. The coal industry. Here, the problem is black lung disease. Breathing longer period of time, that particular leads to black lung disease. What do you call? All these are occupational respiratory disorders. So much dust is produced that the defense mechanism of the body cannot fully cope with the situation. The long exposure can give rise to inflammation, leading to that fibrosis. The common symptom among all these is the fibrosis. What is fibrosis? The word fibrosis indicates the damage of the tissue. Whatever the tissue, lung fibrosis means the lung tissue is going to be damaged. In that way, you have to understand that fibrosis is going to be the common symptom for all. That dead tissue, proliferation of the fibrous tissues or dead tissues are going to be accumulated over. So that results a serious lung damage. The workers in such industries should wear the protective mask. Such industry means like the grinding and stone breaking industries, like they get the silicosis because of the particulate matter, cotton industry, bicyanosis, coal industry, black lung disease is going to be affected over. Okay. So let me take a look on that disorders of the respiratory system. We said first asthma, bronchi and bronchioles are getting affected over. And then after we said emphysema is a chronic disorder and major cause is going to be the cigarette smoking. Occupational respiratory disorder in certain industries, especially those involving the grinding or stone breaking, that so much dust is produced that the defense mechanism of the body cannot fully cope with the situation. The long exposure can give rise to the inflammation leading to the fibrosis, that means the dead tissue, accumulation of the dead tissue or formation of the dead tissue, that causing the serious lung damage. The workers in such industries are requested that it should give awareness to to wear protective mask again, it's not to get affected with them. Okay, next, chapter number 18. Moving on to the chapter 18. NCRT 11, chapter 18, the disorders from circulatory system. Disorders of circulatory system. Little technical here, so need little bit focus, concentration required to understand this particular disorders of the circulatory system. In there, the first one, high blood pressure, BP, you can see. In general terms, we use a BP, high blood pressure. Or also we can call it as hypertension. In other words, you may call it as hypertension or high blood pressure. You should not say, do you have BP? Everyone will have BP. Blood pressure is a common for all. Pressure is there. If it increase, we have to say that is a disorder. Hypertension or a high blood pressure. People usually ask, do you have BP? Yeah, everyone have BP. How much they have? How much they have? 120 by 80. That general blood pressure for any person is going to be 120 by 80. What it means? Systolic pressure by diastolic pressure. The BP nothing but systolic pressure by diastolic pressure. Okay, so which is common for all, isn't it? So BP is common. Only thing here whether they have the less more than the prescribed. how much is the prescribed? That means how much the normal is going to be. So normal is going to be 120 by 80. The normal blood pressure we can say 120 by 80. Systolic pressure during ventricular systole, the person should have 120, and during relaxation of the ventricles, that blood pressure in the arteries is going to be or should be that 80, 120 mm of Hg, the millimeters of the mercury pressure, and the systolic or pumping, then 80 mm of Hg is the diastolic or resting pressure, we can say. So, if a person is checked repeatedly, repeated checks of the blood pressure of an individual, if he is getting instead of 120, he is getting 140, 140 by 90. So, what we can understand? That is, so he is suffering with high blood pressure. Okay, so that we can say he is having hypertension. So high blood pressure leads to the heart diseases and also affects the vital organs like brain and kidney. Blood pressure increases. So here you have to understand that we know that ventricles are pumping the blood during the contraction, during the systole. So the on the valve, how much pressure they are going to create. So that we are calculating. 120 during contraction, okay, and 80 during relaxation. So that we are estimating. In case if it is more than 120, and do remember when you run or when you work, so generally it may raise up to 150, even 145, 150, even it may raise. But that you cannot say as a high blood pressure. When you take rest for a period of time, 5 to 10 minutes, when you sit back, you will reach back to the normal. That's why we are saying that when we can confirm the person is having high blood pressure in the normal condition, the resting state, even he is sitting and under no pressure, under no anxiety is having, at the time when you check is observed 140. Take you the measurement again after an hour, after a day. So likewise, that means repeated checks of the blood pressure of an individual, which is very important here. So immediately when a person start running and comes towards you, he's got 150, you should not declare he is having high blood pressure. That because when he sit, when he take rest here, immediately that may get down to 120 again. So that's why in this case, to confirm the high blood pressure, the what is required, continuous repeated checks. He is showing the normal conditions also. That means in resting state also. He is sitting, he is not running, he is not doing exercise. In that also he is having 140. Do it again, do it again. At the time he is having 140, you confirm he is having high blood pressure. Okay. So then moving on, coronary artery disease. It's there in the name, coronary artery disease. Who is coronary artery? Coronary artery. Do you remember the coronary artery? CAD, we use it to say it as the artery which supplies blood to the heart. We know the blood supply to all over body, to the body parts done by heart. The heart is also an organ. It requires some blood for continuous contraction. Rhythmic heartbeat requires some nutrients and oxygen. So coronary artery is a blood vessel which supplies blood to the heart itself. So disease to the coronary artery we are talking about, which is also called atherosclerosis, atherosclerotic heart disease, we can say. Coronary artery disease, or we may term it as CAD or atherosclerosis. So, what is the problem here? It affects the vessel. Which vessel? Coronary artery that supply blood to the heart muscle. So which vessel is going to supply blood to the heart muscle? Coronary artery is going to supply. So effect on coronary artery. It supplies blood to the heart muscles itself. So how does it happen? It is caused by the deposits of, imagine this is a blood vessel. So there may be some deposits of calcium, the calcium deposits in the heart. It may happen coronary artery disease, deposits of the calcium or fat materials may get deposit over. That sometimes the fat even get deposit over. The cholesterol, we can say. So, and the fibrous tissues, that means the dead tissue, as I said to you. Whenever the fibrous tissue comes here, don't be confused with the epithelial tissue, connective tissue. In the connective tissue, also we use a word called fibrous. So that is not that in disorders, when the fibrous tissue come, we have to understand tissue which is dead in that area. We can say fibrous accumulation of the dead tissue, fibrous tissue is going to be the lumen is going to become narrower. You see here, the lumen of coronary artery became narrow. The lumen became, so which is a major symptom here in this particular lumen of coronary artery become narrower in the lumen. So how does it get narrower? That we are talking about. In that particular vessel, there may be depositions of calcium or fat or cholesterol are all going to be deposited over accumulation of the dead tissue. That fibrous tissue accumulation makes over that. So what happens? We can imagine what happens. Inadequate blood supply to the heart, isn't it? Heart vessels won't get much blood supply. Okay. So that we can say coronary artery disease. Okay. Then we have some applications here. So that means when coronary artery disease expected, so what can be happened? The one of them I'm talking angina pectoris. We use it to say angina pectoris. So, angina pectoris. What is the problem here in this particular? First of all, let us see the symptoms. Then after we'll try to understand what is going to be. Here, in this case, the problem is going to be acute chest pain. Acute chest pain. Okay, so the cause, how it happens, we'll discuss. But first of all, let us see. Acute chest pain appears when there is no enough oxygen is reaching to the heart muscle. The person feel as an acute chest pain. So why it happened? Due to the inadequate supply of oxygen to the heart muscle. So angina pectoris can occur in men and women of any age, but it is more common in middle-aged people and elderly aged people. Middle-aged and elderly aged people, it is going to be more common. Okay, so it occurs by what here? The due to the condition that affect the blood flow. What are the conditions affect the blood flow? I can say like this: angina pectoris in the middle-aged and elderly aged women due to the conditions which affect the blood flow. You see here, what are the conditions affects the blood flow that we are talking here? That due to the depositions of calcium, fat, cholesterol, and accumulation of the fibrous tissue, when the vessel become narrow, we can say inadequate supply of oxygen to the heart muscle. So what it may result? It may result angina pectoris. So when you are reading even, you have to correlate these two issues. Coronary artery disease results angina pectoris. Acute chest pain can be expected over. So you have to understand in that particular manner. Okay. So that means coronary artery disease can lead to anything. Among them, we are talking about one is angina pectoris. Okay, let's see one more heart failure. In case of heart failure, what is heart failure? Heart failure means the state of heart when it is not pumping the blood. What is the function of heart? Heart pumps the blood to the body. So, in case if heart is not able to pump the blood to the body part, we can say that is heart failure. Not pumping blood effectively enough to meet the needs of the body. It is sometimes called congestive heart failure. Heart failure is sometimes also called congestive heart failure. Congestive heart failure. We can say, and also it can be say as a congestive heart failure for sometimes because it is due to the congestion of lungs. Congestive heart failure due to the congestion of lungs, it may happen. Okay, congestion of lungs, one of the main symptoms of this particular disease, we can say. Okay, so do remember the very important statement which we are going for. Heart failure, heart failure is not the same as cardiac arrest. Heart failure is not the same as cardiac arrest, which they are saying. Heart failure is not the cardiac arrest. Both are not same. Then what is cardiac arrest? When you define cardiac arrest, so saying cardiac arrest and heart failure are different. Okay. So when we call it as cardiac arrest, when heart starts beating, we can say that as cardiac arrest. When heart stops beating, is called cardiac arrest. So what is heart failure? Heart failure, we are going to define the heart failure as heart is not pumping blood effectively enough to meet the needs of the body. Heart failure definition given here, it is not meeting the needs of the body, effectively not pumping the blood. Okay. What is cardiac, the heart, cardiac arrest? Cardiac arrest, we say heart stops beating. Next, heart attack. The one more here. It's a little confusing. So focus here. Heart attack. We have one more. Heart attack. What is heart attack? Heart attack means heart muscle is suddenly damaged by an inadequate blood supply. Inadequate blood supply, we can say that heart muscle is suddenly damaged by an inadequate blood supply, we can say heart attack. So, you should not understand the heart failure is not the same as cardiac arrest or heart attack. So, saying that there are different things. Saying that there is a heart failure, there is a cardiac arrest, there is a heart attack. So, let us see the properties one after another. The first one is heart failure because this is the debatable and need to analyze this particular. Otherwise, we'll confuse in examination. So, saying three features in one heading. Heart failure. Okay. Next, heart attack. Next, so heart failure is different, heart attack is different, and cardiac arrest is also different. So we may say earlier, before we enter into this chapter, heart they're all heart problems, but we get examination differently. Okay, so that's why let us define one after another. Let us define all of them one after another. How do we define them? So first of all, heart failure. So how do we define the heart failure? That means the state of heart, focus here, state of heart when it is not pumping, the state of heart when it is not pumping blood effectively, not pumping blood effectively enough to meet the needs of the body, enough to meet the needs of the body. We can say heart failure. So what we can say is heart failure. Okay, the state of heart when it is not pumping the blood effectively, we can say heart failure. So what is heart attack? What is heart attack? When the heart muscle, when you write one after another, there only you can find the difference. When the heart muscle is suddenly damaged by an inadequate blood supply. Inadequate blood supply. Sudden damage of the heart muscle by inadequate blood supply. Okay, so then that may be a problem in the coronary artery, we can say here. Cardiac arrest. When the heart stops beating, we can say cardiac arrest. We have some technical names that coronary ischemia, that infarction, the different words which are not mentioned in the text here. Just going through that, limiting ourselves to the technical terms which are given here. That see the difference among the three. What is heart failure? The keyword you have to remember. So effectively pumping problem. If in that we can say not pumping blood effectively, we can say heart failure. Okay. So heart muscle is suddenly damaged by an inadequate blood supply. we can say. Okay, suddenly damaged by muscle problem here. Muscle is problem. Okay, so cardiac arrest means heart stop beating. So they are saying these three are different. Okay, so let's see. Let's take a look back again here. Here it is high blood pressure that continuously or after regular checks. If the person is having more than 120, we can say that 140, that 140, 150, we can say he is having hypertension, high blood pressure, and the coronary artery disease. When it comes to the coronary artery disease, is also called atherosclerotic heart disease. That atherosclerosis, we can say, there the symptom is going to be lumen of coronary artery become narrower because of the accumulation of the calcium, fat, cholesterol, and fibrous tissue. In case of angina pectoris, acute chest pain here in the middle-aged and elderly aged people, it will come because of narrowing of the coronary artery. Okay, so we can say it's a symbol, a signal that when the artery, coronary artery is going to become narrower, we can see the external symptom as acute chest pain. Person feel chest pain, we can understand something is happening in the coronary artery. Okay, heart failure. So very important statement to be remembered here. Heart failure is not the same as cardiac arrest. The heart failure is also called congestive heart failure due to the congestion of lungs. That reason for the heart failure is given because of the congestion of lungs. Okay, so in case of heart failure, the symptom is going to be that the heart is not pumping blood effectively, that enough to meet the needs of the body. In case of heart attack, the muscle of the heart is getting damaged here in by an inadequate blood supply. Cardiac arrest, when the heart stops beating, we can say cardiac arrest. Okay, so these are the disorders from that circulatory system. Disorders from circulatory system. Okay. So in the same way, we'll see the disorders of the excretory system, and then we'll close this session. Disorders of excretory system. Moving on to the disorders of the excretory system. Here it is. So the first one. So about excretory system, when we are talking here, the malfunctioning of the kidneys can lead to the accumulation of the urea in the blood. We can say uremia. Okay, so what is uremia? Uremia is a disorder, what we can say, the malfunctioning of the kidney. So I am saying here. So let's write the reason for uremia. The malfunctioning of kidneys, malfunctioning of the kidneys can lead to accumulation of urea in blood. So we have more choice of questions here. We have more disorders in this area. So little bit focus. So this is what we are talking about. Malfunctioning of the kidney can lead to accumulation of the blood, accumulation of urea in the blood. We call it as that uremia, which it is highly harmful, may lead to the kidney failure even. Okay, in this patients, in such patients, urea can be removed a process called hemodialysis. Hemodialysis. This problem can be removed with the help of this problem can be done with the help of hemodialysis, that we can remove this problem. So if kidneys fail, kidney is not working, simply we can say urea is not going to be eliminated out from the body. That means where that urea present itself in the blood. So if kidney is not working, accumulation of the urea is going to be a common symptom. Okay, you may heard over the dialysis by weekly 2 times, weekly 3 times. People will do those people where the kidney failure occurs, isn't it? So this hemodialysis, we'll discuss in detail hemodialysis. Okay, during the process of hemodialysis, what we do, that particular artificial kidney, we can say simply hemodialysis. We remove the urea from the blade. I will bring out the blade of the patient outside by some technical using some hemodialytic machine, and we remove the urea from the blade and we inject the blade back again. Okay, so we will take a special class for that hemodialysis issue. So just moving on with the diseases. Remember, uremia is a condition, we can say, accumulation of urea in the blade. Accumulation of urea in the blade, we can say the uremia. It is because of failure of the kidney. The failure of the kidney leads to uremia. Okay. Next, let's come to the next disorder here about renal caliculi. So one more disorder, a very famous and regular one, that is renal caliculi. You may not understand when we say renal caliculi, but we understand that stones in the kidney. Now you can understand easily. Stone, which is a very regular and common problem nowadays because of the food habits, it's going to become very common problem. The stone are insoluble mass of crystallized crystallized salt. Don't understand, like when we eat stones in the food, we get stones in the kidney. There is no such evidence likewise, because whatever we eat through the mouth, it will go through the anus, fecal matter, isn't it? So how can you get that stones in the kidney? So how does the stones are formed? Stone are insoluble mass of crystallized salt. Salts may be oxalates that which are formed in the kidney. We can say renal caliculi. Okay, so that means by eating tomato, by eating spinach for continuous time, that particular the oxalates present in them may accumulate in the ureters or may accumulate in the kidney. That going to create the stones. Accumulation of formation of stones in the body, not the stones which we are eating. So that you have to notice. Next, glomerulonephritis. It's there in the name. Glomerulo. That means we know in the nephron that Bowman's capsule contain that glomerulus, isn't it? We are talking about that glomerulus, the disease, inflammation in the glomerulus. We can say inflammation of glomerular kidney. The glomeruli which are present in the nephron of the kidney, we can say glomerulonephritis. Okay, glomerulonephritis, we can say. Okay, so that's it. Okay. This particular disorders we have to talk about. Uremia, malfunctioning of the kidneys. Kidneys malfunctioning, we can say renal failure, which is a very regular thing. That means the people who have the failure of the kidney leads to the accumulation of urea. Okay. So what is the solution for that? Hemodialysis. We do hemodialysis. We clear that urea in the blood that by using hemodialysis machine, and then they go for renal that where the blood will be injected back to the patient again. But this is not the final solution. The transplantation is required, but till they get transplant the new kidney for transplantation, the patient should do the hemodialysis. Okay. Simply you understand urea is formed in the blood means there is some problem in the kidney. Okay, based on the intensity of the amount of the urea accumulated over in the blood, we can understand how far the failure of the kidneys happen over. The person who failed both kidneys, we can say high amount of urea is there in the blood of patient, or if high amount of urea is present in the blood of the patient, we can understand his kidney, the both kidneys are completely damaged. Okay, so we'll discuss hemodialysis in the next class. Okay, so these are the disorders: uremia, renal caliculi, and glomerulonephritis. We continue with the disorders in the next class. Thank you.